Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new edition of KerVAM, a Doctor Who podcast where of course we talk about all things Doctor Who, but especially the DVDs and Blu-rays, and we will be covering some of that off later in this podcast today because I guess that's kind of what we're about. But also because there's been a lot of news recently about RTD2, lots of filming pictures, the 60th trailer because we haven't been around for a few weeks and all of that. We thought it'd be great to do a podcast with a lot of focus on what's happening now, the new show, the excitement for the future. So episode 31 of KerVAM is going to be all about RTD2 with a little bit of classic Who other stuff at the end as well. But I am of course joined by my three trusty companions as always, Bill, Ryan and Charlie. Charlie, how are you getting on at the moment? You feeling some excitement for the future of Doctor Who with all these filming pictures and announcements and things?
I not quite as much as I was 2 or 3 weeks ago because I know around Christmas obviously we got the trailer on 3-4 o'clock Christmas Day. That was fantastic. Very good Christmas present. And then we had lots more news and filming updates like in the window between Christmas and New Year and a few days after. We haven't really had too much since. I know Doctor Who like socials have been posting quite a lot about like the doctors, and they're just sort of posting a lot to remind us that it's the 60th year.
Counting down the doctors for no apparent reason.
Yeah, because why not?
Maybe it'll amount to something, who knows?
But generally, I'm very excited for the 60th, obviously, because, I mean, do I need to explain why, really? You know, David Tennant,
exactly.
It's all happening. The trailer didn't really reveal anything major, but it kind of doesn't need to. Like,
it's true.
Like, the marketing hook is David Tennant and Catherine Tate. They showed them. And I like how they revealed not too much, you know, like, we still have no idea, really, what the story's about at all. We just know beat the meat.
Beat the meat.
I know there was loads of the rumours of beat the meat about a month ago, and we just apparently is a character now. Generally that the trailer was just sort of to get us excited about Doctor Who, and I think it's worked. I'm very excited about Doctor Who, but I can't say I've been thinking as much about it given we don't really know too much yet.
No, of course that makes sense. And Ryan, are you feeling the most excited about Doctor Who in the last 5 years for you? I know you obviously didn't enjoy the Chris Chibnall era quite so much. So would you say the excitement level's a little bit higher this year compared to most of the previous ones?
It's still a little bit up in the air at the moment because again we don't really know that much yet, and I'm still a bit amazed that they've put out a full trailer, even though it's still nearly a year before the 60th actually starts. I mean, of course, I admire Russell for going as far as bringing back Beat the Meep and bringing back other more obscure things. I think there was rumours that the Viper Ox from that Dreamland animator one might be going up. So I'm happy that Russell wants to be that obscure. And I still don't know if Neil Patrick Harris is indeed playing the Toymaker or if he is playing like a Celestial, like Eternal or a Time Lord, maybe, who knows. I did notice that the waistcoat that he's wearing is the same one as David Tennant is wearing. So I'm willing to bet that this new David Tennant Doctor is somehow caused by him, that he somehow interfered with the regeneration, and maybe that has something to do with Donna coming back. Maybe it's to resolve something that the Tennant Doctor wasn't able to do before. So it is interesting, and I'm willing to bet that about roughly 70 to 75% of the 60th will be to do with David Tennant and all that, and the last sort of percent of it, the last third of it, will be Shooting Cadwell trying to resolve everything. And in a way, sort of like how Matt Smith, when he became the Doctor, he was sort of thrown into the action, almost trying to solve something immediately. And I bet that's what Shooty's going to do, but I think on a much more larger scale.
I think it's going to be exciting to see how the two Doctors play out and where in the specials that regeneration comes. We obviously know that the festive special, whether it's Christmas or New Year, we really hope for Christmas, will be Shooty's episode. But will it, how far back into the last special will the regeneration happen? I'm really intrigued to see that. And Bill, I mean, we've certainly, I feel like every time I go on Twitter, there's new filming pictures, like something else is happening from that side of things. Not official announcements, but just like a new picture of the TARDIS or that weird slug creature, or like just stuff going on. Like I don't know. Have you been keeping across that? Doesn't it just kind of create a bit of just fun and excitement now? I feel like it just makes it feel like stuff's happening, even though nothing's happening really. Like stuff is actually happening. I just think it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it makes a nice change from like some of the stuff that the kind of approach that Chibnall era did. And I don't want to seem like I'm bashing the Chibnall era. I want to make it clear that like there's both approaches in terms of marketing are completely valid, and both of their merits and everything. But I think for me personally, it has this current approach that Russell is taking, where he's just given us little bits, nothing which is like really spoilerific, as it were, and like giving too much away.
Yeah,
we don't know like much about the actual plot for any of these specials. We don't know that much at all, really, apart from a few little bits that and just the way Russell himself is like conducting things with not just the filming pictures, but then also like the little teasers in DWM every month, and like I think he gives like 3 words for each special at minute, and just stuff which is not really that much to go on, but is still like something to just keep Doctor Who in our minds, essentially, whilst we wait for nearly a whole year basically for it to come back.
Yeah, it feels like Russell just has a much greater grasp on the kind of the marketing and promotional side of Doctor Who. Like, I know, you can say what you like about Chris Chibnall's writing, but I feel like he never really got very involved in kind of promoting the show and the way of keeping the interest in the show throughout the year, rather than just when the episodes are on. His approach was very much, we keep it quiet so that there's no spoilers, and then it's going to be big excitement and reveals when it actually, goes out on air, which 5, 6, 7 years ago, I thought that was a good idea. And I think I did a video on my channel about it. I'm sure you can find it somewhere, about how, like, Moffat used to just go and spoil stuff willy-nilly. I remember that time when when they stuck the John Sim Master at the end of episode 1 of series 10, it was just like, what are you doing? So there's a balance here, but I feel like Russell just really knows where on the scale to kind of pitch that, where we've got a trailer on Christmas Day, but it doesn't actually give anything away. It just creates excitement. And these little teasers in Doctor Who magazine, announcing random new sort of actors and stuff to the cast, and Kate Stewart as well, obviously returning, and Gemma Redgrave returning as Kate Stewart, which, again, as you said, Charlie, we know nothing about the plot of the 60th, really. Like, we know this Beat the Meep's in it, we know probably the Toymaker's in it, but I couldn't tell you what the actual storyline or anything about it is. And yet it was all shot 9 months ago, 8 months ago, and we had multiple trailers for it. And, it sort of feels like if this was the Chris Chibnall era, the episode would be airing tomorrow. Like, it just is such a different approach that I think is quite refreshing for the show. I don't know, Ryan, do you feel like this new approach Russell has taken in just giving a little bit more away, do you think that's really kind of helping, I guess, the sort of, the popularity of the show grow, the fandom, keeping the fandom more engaged? Do you think that's a real good thing for the show?
I would say so. I mean, Russell did say that, I believe he said that there was still more to be announced. And I wouldn't be surprised if, say, next week he decides to drop a massive bomb, another big reveal. So, I mean, who knows what he could be planning. And if he did say that big stuff is being announced, then it is to wonder, is it just these 60th anniversary specials? Is there more to come? Is there, like, say, a spin-off show that we don't know anything about?
Yeah, spin-offs feel like this massive, like, thing that nobody's quite talking about or knows about, but it kind of feels like it's going to happen. I don't know. It just kind of feels like it's going to happen, but no one's quite gone on the record to say it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, who knows exactly what Russell's got in store. I mean, it is a good way to draw a pipe from the show. I'm hoping he doesn't overhype it too much, because if it is just the 60th, then it's going to be like, I can understand hyping that, but to say that there's more to it, it's like, well, there isn't really anything else. It's just those things. So hopefully he's got something more in store. Maybe it's just like a special convention like there was with the 50th.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, me too. So hopefully, as soon as they announce tickets, I managed to get orders straight away. So fingers crossed on that one. So yeah, I'm definitely excited. Hopefully, it gets more people interested. But then again, who knows what could happen in like the next month or so from now.
Well, exactly. Yeah, we just don't know what's going to be announced. But I think it's an interesting point you raised there about, you know, where we ultimately don't know whether Russell's revealed too much already. Like, is knowing that, you know, David Tennant's coming back and Donna's coming back and all of that, is that like the bulk of the story and the plot, or is there some other, you know, are 5 other Doctors suddenly going to turn up, or are some old companions going to turn up, or I guess do we need that? I don't know. Charlie, I feel like I wonder whether we're going to, in 2 or 3 years' time, we're going to feel like Power of the Doctor was more of an anniversary special than the 60th. There's a controversial statement. I don't know. We obviously know nothing, and it could be load of nonsense, and it's just continuity references galore, and the 60th is clearly the 60th. But Power of the Doctor felt like such an anniversary special, really, with all the character returns and things. I don't know. What do you think?
Whatever happens with the 60th, whether, you know, 9 Doctors show up and there's Daleks, Cybermen, 3 Masters, you know, whatever happens, I do think it's going to be better than Power of the Doctor.
Okay.
Not that I didn't like Power of the Doctor, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm 99% sure that it will be better, because it's, you know, I trust, you know, the people they've got working on. But yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm sure Russell will have something else in his sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's something completely different. I feel, you know, I think it might be that Russell introduces new characters and new villains that will eventually be so liked and become so iconic in the future. Because I think Russell T Davies' era, even if he didn't write all of the villains, he introduced some very iconic villains and characters that I feel he might just be sowing the seeds for later on in his era in this. Whereas the returning elements, you know, David Tennant and Catherine Tate, to an extent, Gemma Redgrave as Kate Stewart, they're just more the hook to get the general public watching, because obviously David Tennant is the Doctor in the public eye, really.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm not too sure. I don't think it would be an overly bad thing if we do see Power of the Doctor as more of an anniversary special, because obviously Chibnall wrote that thinking it was the last Doctor Who episode ever. And it wasn't too bad, really. I think like whatever the 60th is, it doesn't need to be Day of the Doctor, because at the end of the day, it's not quite 50th. It's not half century. It's just, you know, 3 Doctors, 5 Doctors. They were both just multiples of 10, you know. Yeah. There's no real way of knowing, to be honest. We'll just have to see. But I think whatever happens, fingers crossed, it'll be pretty great.
Well, exactly. I think that's, you know, we obviously just want to hope it's really good. I think it's a really interesting point you make about the sort of, it doesn't need to be the 50th all over again, because I feel like that's naturally what fans are going to compare it to, and kind of come in with that attitude that it's going to be as big as an event as the 50th was. And like, I do think it's going to be a big deal when we get to November this year, but I don't know whether it's quite going to feel like the same level of, you know, gravity and excitement as the 50th, because I think almost because that was the first big anniversary since the show came back, and since the show had grown massively in popularity. Obviously 2003 was the previous one, and that was, the show was off the air and no one was really talking about it. I think it was a book released and that was about it.
Like the Shout.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Scream of the Shouker, what a classic. We'll have to talk about that someday. But yeah, like Scream of the Shouker and a book, and I think that was pretty much it, and a few DVDs. Compared to the 50th, where it felt like every day there was something new going on, and this massive convention. Obviously, the episode itself was such an event episode as such. I almost feel like we as fans have got to temper our expectations, because it might not be quite like that. I don't know, Bill. Where do you think they're gonna hit it? Do you think it's gonna be as big as a 50th, or do you think we actually need to be a little bit more keep our expectations in check, because it could be not low key, but just like not quite as big as thing as the 60th, as the 50th even.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with what you're saying. In like, I think the 50th is always going to be a different beast because it was such a big anniversary. And I feel like, therefore, I know we as fans, we're always going to compare all the anniversaries side by side anyway. Like, we already do it with all the ones we've got. So when the 60th comes out, that's going to be no different, really. But I think that in a way, it doesn't, like you say, it doesn't really need to be like the 50th. I mean, if it is anything like it at all, that's great. I mean, I would love to be able to like go back to some of the stuff that was happening around the 50th, and for some of the stuff, sort of similar stuff to be happening for 60th would be really good. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter so much if they kind of play it a bit more kind of casual in a way with the 60th. If they kind of say, right, you had a lot of stuff come out for the 50th. We're going to be a bit more kind of playing it safe with the 60th, because it's still a big anniversary. Don't get me wrong, 60 years is not, it's still very noteworthy, but it's probably not quite in the same league as 50 years. So I think we'll definitely get, well, we know we're getting, 3 specials and probably one for the festive time of year as well. And then anything else, really, even if it's just like bringing some kind of Doctor Who Confidential back or whatever, or like a sort of documentary about 60 years, because I know they've done that for the past couple of anniversaries. They've always done some kind of documentary. And then, as we'll talk about later, if they bring back any animations or anything, then I feel like that kind of stuff would be like enough for me personally. But anything else, I would 100% like, be really happy to see. And I don't know, just whatever they have planned, I'm sure will be great. And I do feel like, we can trust Russell to have, pretty good idea of what exactly he wants to do. And maybe the 60th will not be for everyone, but I think, there'll be at least something there. It could maybe be just David Tennant and Catherine Tate. There could be no other returning doctors, which I do think will be a shame. But if most of them can't come back or don't want to come back, then that's fair enough. So yeah, just whatever happens, I will be personally anyway completely fine with. But yeah, I think hopefully we do get quite a lot of stuff. Maybe not to the same level as the 50th or any of the other anniversaries, but yeah, just whatever they come out with, I'll be very much looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I think ultimately we will all be really looking forward to it. And I think just to sort of go alongside that, I think kind of thinking about where the show's at now compared to where it was in 2013, it's sort of Day of the Doctor kind of felt like a sort of a peak, a like conclusion to almost the first 8 years of the new show, with the whole Time War narrative and bringing that all back. I know that really in the Moffat era they didn't really cover it until just before Day of the Doctor, but still as a whole it felt like that narrative was kind of being brought to a conclusion there with this big peak point, the end of Matt Smith, and then on we move into a new start there. Whereas it feels like the 60th is like a starting point. It's sort of a fresh start for the show is happening, not next series. That's happening now with these 60th specials, because it's not had anything to build up to it, because obviously the change of showrunner and kind of starting a fresh story really. It doesn't have any natural story to bring a conclusion to in these specials. It's very much something new. So I sort of just feel like it's a different place for the show to be, in terms of this is the start of a big new era rather than almost the end of a big era in sort of the Matt Smith Moffat era. I don't know, Ryan, what do you think about my little theory? Do you think that holds some water, or you completely disagree with me?
I mean, I don't know, to be honest. I mean, it's just a case of waiting and seeing. I mean, it is possible that this could be the start of a whole new story that we just don't know about. I mean, it is entirely possible. I mean, as I said, we have to wait and see. But it's just a case of whether or not where it is they're starting will be enough to hold everyone's attention. I mean, I remember. I mean, I know compared to Day of the Doctor, I remember with the 50th anniversary. I mean, I was there when all that stuff was happening. I mean, with the proms happening and the big convention and everything. I know being there, it was like being at a rock concert, and I just got the feeling being there was a huge buzz around the 50th anniversary. Like everyone wanted to check it out, and I mean they had all these cinema events, for it, and I was lucky enough to attend one of those screenings as well, and in London, and I don't know if this is going to have the same momentum as that, if whether it's just them presenting whatever storyline it is will be solid enough to warrant any of this. I mean, but then again, we shall have to wait and see in a few months. I hope it does, fingers crossed, but who knows if we're going to have that sort of rock star event that I felt like there was with the 50th. I mean, I don't know if they'll give it the same treatment this time around. I mean, it would be a shame if they stopped doing that altogether.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what approach they take to it, and just what the audience kind of think of it. Really, I think at the time whether there feels like there's that hype. So of course we've also had various announcements about RTD2. Well, as in like Shooty Gap while Doctor Who, because they're currently filming series 14. They've been filming it for about the last month now. I think they started filming before Christmas, and as I say, every day I see a new filming picture or something going on. Probably the biggest announcement has been the return of Kate Stewart and Unit, of course, by extension. Charlie, I thought it was interesting that they announced Kate Stewart for series 14, but we know Unit are in the 60th. But they didn't announce that Kate was in the 60th. So I just thought, I don't know whether that means that they're just keeping it quiet or what. But I don't know. What's your general feelings about Kate returning?
To be honest, I thought when they announced Kate that they were announcing her for the 60th and sort of by extension series 14. But yeah, honestly, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, the way that it's worded, it says returns in the next series of Doctor Who and doesn't reference the 60th specials, which to me implies it's series 14. And we obviously seen her filming series 14, but I don't know.
Yeah, I get the sense that if she isn't in the 60th, then Unit will play a part, if maybe a minimal one, in the 60th, helping to, I don't know, defeat some aliens or something. Probably, just guess. And then that'll sort of tie into series 14 somehow, and then I can definitely see it being that there'll be a couple of like Earthbound episodes scattered throughout the season, maybe. One of them might be the pilot or the the first episode or the last, and then maybe just another Earthbound episode somewhere in the season. And obviously Kate and Unit will sort of be recurring characters in the same way that Brigadier was for the later Pertwee seasons, in that there's, they're very much a part of the show, but they're not absolute constants. I think that would work really well, especially since I quite liked how they did that with Unit. Just a team of allies who don't appear too much and don't take away loads of screen time from the main Doctor and companions, but still play a decent role and are likable enough to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having Kate as a character, just as a sort of character to kind of bridge the gap between eras as well. I mean, it's been 11 years since she first appeared. I thought it was a bit mad. 2012 Power of 3 was when she first turned up. It's correct, and the amount of different Doctors she's met as well now is really rivaling the Brigadier, I think. And well, obviously we'll extend that into RTD2 as well. But Bill, we've had a few other sort of casting announcements, some more mysterious than others, for Series 14. We've had this guy who I must confess I hadn't heard of, called, isn't it, Aneurin Barnard, or Barnard, I don't know, who is playing some weird character named, can we remember, Roger A.P. App William. I don't know how to pronounce that, but he looked like some sort of mysterious politician, I think we saw from filming photos. But I don't know, these various casting announcements, do you find them hard to get excited about, or is it kind of nice they announce them? I don't know, Bill, where do you feel about these sort of slightly random casting announcements?
I think when I first see them, I'm like, I do get a bit excited, but then I think kind of the more time has passed since the initial announcement, you kind of just feel, oh yeah, and then that person is playing this character or whatever. Yeah, the only one that really stands out to me is that Roger Ap Gwilliam that you just mentioned, who I feel like is really going to be, at least for a few episodes in series 14, like a big threat. But yeah, I feel like they're just kind of, again, it's nothing too big and it's not really giving too much away, but it's kind of just, it's just something that's always there, just like little nuggets of information, as it were, just to keep us going until November.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of ticking it along. I mean, it'll probably be quite funny. We'll come and look back at this in a year's time, or well, whenever series 14 airs, and go, wow, that was like the most important character of the whole series. That was like the main villain of series 14. And they just, announced it off the cuff, and we were like, who's that person? I don't know who they are. Yeah, I just think it's quite fun looking back on things like that. But Ryan, are you feeling, I don't know, there's, as I say, there's a lot of filming pictures, there's a lot going around about series 14 at the moment. I mean, the one thing we haven't seen much of is Shooty as the Doctor in any filming pictures, because he's still been filming Sex Education until I think there was a first picture yesterday, but it was a very long shot, so you couldn't really see him. But have you been sort of, getting some excitement? And, we saw like these pictures of the slug creature, I think it was, in the last couple of weeks as well, that looked rather interesting, going around a university in Wales. I don't know, does all these little tidbits of information sort of get the excitement going for probably 12 months away?
I'm still... It's interesting, but I haven't felt the momentum yet. I think maybe I will do once it's nearer the date, but at the moment I'm still fairly neutral at the moment. I mean, hopefully by the time the 60th anniversary and series 14 does roll around, I think towards that time, I think I will get that excitement up again. I hope so, but again, we should have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think it's one of those that it's a bit of a waiting game, but it's nice to see that everything is sort of in motion and happening. We obviously have no idea when Series 14 is going to air, so I guess my real desperate hope is that it's going to be this time next year we're watching Series 14. I don't really see any reason why we shouldn't get it very early next year, because they'll have finished filming it by June, and, post-production doesn't take 12 months, so... I don't know, Charlie, do you have any predictions on when we'll get, obviously we're going to get 3 specials, we're going to get Christmas Day or New Year's Day, and then Series 14 pretty quickly after?
I think what I'd like to happen is, I'm not going to say, very often to do what Chibnall did, but do a Christmas or New Year special, ideally Christmas 2023.
Yes, yeah.
Hopefully Saturday. When is Christmas? Will be a Sunday this year, right?
No, I think it'll be a Monday. Wasn't it a Sunday just gone?
Yeah, I think it might be a Monday.
I think it'll be a Monday.
So maybe do the next Saturday.
Okay. Yeah.
Afterwards, so it'd be like an early day in January, then carry on for 8 Saturdays in January and February.
Yeah,
that would probably be ideal. I think, that would work. I mean, the dream would be to have it this year, but that's not happen, is it really?
Alas, we're gonna have to wait.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully early spring next year at the absolute latest. There's no way it's going to take longer, really. But yeah, I think it'd be quite cool if we did have a Christmas special, which leads directly onto Series 14.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with that, and I think it's also interesting and worth noting that they haven't actually filmed the Christmas/New Year's special yet, because of the order they're filming the episodes in. I think they've done the first block of filming, which is like episodes 2 and 3 or something of series 14. But I think the second block that they're starting soon will actually be the Christmas special. So obviously wanting to get Ncuti, the classic Peter Davison style, get Ncuti comfortable in the role before doing his first story. Or Matt Smith did the same as well with Time of Angels and Flesh and Stone. And I feel like 8 episodes is going to be just about enough to keep us going. Russell's kind of teased that, it's going to be longer in the future. But whereas I feel like Flux was too short. I think would you all agree that Flux was too short? Well, I know. Okay, Flux, the story probably didn't need to be 8 or 10 episodes long because we would have all just been like, wow, this is dragging. But like a series length of Doctor Who, 6 episodes is too short. And so 8, I feel like it's just about enough to kind of keep that hype going week to week to week. But obviously, 10, 12, 20, however many you like, I'll watch them. Would be great in the future. And, maybe if we get a series of Doctor Who in like the spring, then we could have a spin-off in the autumn. Wouldn't that be exciting next year? I think that'd be rather good. Well, we've of course talked all about the current and future of Doctor Who, but as we like to do in this podcast, we delve back into the past to talk about what is very, very likely to be the next Doctor Who The Collection Blu-ray box set. Season 9 that appeared on I think a Swiss website over last weekend with a listing and a release date of the 20th of March. Whether that's accurate, we'll see. But certainly they proved last year that at least with the box set, like the season, they were correct. They announced season 22 correctly, definitely. I can't remember. I think they had season 2 on there as well. Well, certainly I remember them having Galaxy 4, the animated Galaxy 4 on there before it was announced. So I think it's fair to say it's accurate. But yeah, we don't know about the release date, but the one they've given us is the 20th of March. So maybe it's only 2 months away, which would be pretty exciting. But I was...
Happy birthday as well. So if it's the case, then it'd be a nice little late birthday present.
Well, absolutely, yeah. But I was reading on one of the forums, somebody was saying that would be the shortest gap ever between an announcement and a release of a collection box set. I think that the shortest before has been like 11 weeks or something, and this would be about 8 if they announced it like tomorrow. So it's probably going to be later. Let's call it April, and we'll be safe. But season 9 of Doctor Who, of course, John Pertwee's 3rd season as the Doctor, featuring the stories Day of the Daleks, the Sea Devils, the Time Monster and the Mutants, and I've missed one, which is Curse of Peladon. Is it Curse of Peladon? Yeah. Yes, that's what I forgot. Yeah, it's really bad. I always forget Curse of Peladon. As good as it is, I forget about it. So, Charlie, you're of course a well-known Pertwee fan. We did a podcast about it a year ago or something, chatting all about the Pertwee stories. Season 9, where does this one sit in for the Pertwee era for you?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Like the first 3 stories are very, very good. They're top-notch Doctor Who. 4th and 5th, not quite so much.
Yeah,
I know. I said Time Monster was my least favorite Pertwee story, and you said the Mutants was yours.
Yes, that was it. Yeah, the Mutants is certainly my least favorite.
Yeah, Time Monster has grown on me a tiny bit, and I would say the Mutants is my least favorite now, but still. Okay. I think it's those last 2 stories that really drag it down for me. I think there's 3 very clear camps of Pertwee seasons. There's seasons 11 and season 9 at the bottom. Well, they're not bottom of the barrel Doctor Who, but just as far as the Pertwee era goes, they're lower down. Then you've got 8 and 10, and then 7, which is just probably my favourite season of Doctor Who. It's fantastic. But season 9, the first 3 stories are really, really great, I think. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we talked a lot about the Sea Devils back in, March.
Yeah, like nearly a year ago. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. We talked a lot about Sea Devils then.
Yeah,
it's great. Curse of Peladon, I know you forgot it, but I think it's very good.
No, I do enjoy it, yeah.
It's a really great one. And Day of the Daleks, I think, is very underappreciated. The bar isn't exactly really high, but it's the best Pertwee Dalek story.
Yes.
And I don't know, I'd say in the last time I watched through all of classic Doctor Who, I actually ranked it above Genesis of the Daleks.
Why?
It was like 2 places above, which looking back might have been a strange decision of me, but I really loved it from the last rewatch. yeah, I do love Day of the Daleks. Yeah, Mutants and Time Monster. I'd rather not talk about as much. Just I don't really like them.
Yeah, yeah. I remember doing I think about 9 or 10 years ago. I was doing a marathon through sort of the Pertwee era and the Tom Baker era, just sort of randomly. When it used to all be on Daily Motion many years ago. And I remember because I didn't know a lot of the stories I just knew absolutely nothing about. And I remember getting to the end of, well, what would it be? Is it the Sea Devils? And then it's Day of the Daleks, Curse of Peladon, and then the Sea Devils. Is that the right order?
Yeah.
Time Monster, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember I watched the Curse of Peladon. I'm like, wow, I've got 3 6-parters in a row. This is great. I love the really big, long stories. And I'm like, wow, the Sea Devils is great. And then I get into like the 2 or 3 episodes into the Mutants, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So it's just really slow and a bit dull. Like, yeah, I think the Mutants more so than the Time Monster. The Time Monster is still pretty dire. But the Mutants just feels really slow and boring. And that was kind of the biggest kind of crime of it, especially when it's a 6-parter and it just drags on forever. Yeah, I don't know. It was a bit of a struggle. Ryan, come on. I'm sure you've got some thoughts.
Oh man, the Mutants, it is slow, but at times very, very, very bizarre. I mean, because of the infamous moment I think it's the last part when the main guy in it turns into that almost just with his Technicolor dream coat on. That is burnt into my brain. It's just a very, as I said, very slow, bizarre story, but its bizarreness has nothing on Time Monster because, oh man, the Time Monster, some of the stuff in that, I mean, well, some of it, I don't know if I can, I mean, the Master's device is called Tom Tit, which I'm not going to elaborate any further than that. Anyone watching?
If you don't know it, Google it. It's all you need to do.
Yeah, just look it up yourselves. And the monster itself, well, looks the way it does. I mean, just looks like a white parrot with a puppet parrot with like a glow filter on top of it. And then halfway through, I think it's halfway through the story, it has one of the most bizarre sequences ever where the Doctor's trying to disrupt whatever it is the Master's doing by constructing something called, I believe it's a time flow analog, and he makes it by balancing household objects and
pretty.
And it's the only thing to complete it is to add like tea bags to it, which I think one of the most bizarre and ultimately kind of pointless sequence of the show because it doesn't really amount to anything. It doesn't change the plot or anything. It's just a weird, bizarre sequence. And if anyone wants to skip the Mutants and the Time Monster, fair enough. You're not really missing anything with those stories. But if for some morbid, bizarre reason you want to check out the Time Monster, that sequence halfway through is a joy to behold. It is absolutely
it's quite something. Yeah,
it's. We agree that. Can we agree that the Time Monster is very much the creature of the pits of the Pertwee era?
That's a very good shout. Yeah,
I don't know if it quite reaches that level of WTF-ness.
Wow, it's pretty close.
It is close. It is pretty close. Oh man. I've just thought of something. What if we all ended up like doing like a watch along of double bill of Time Monster and Creature from the Pit? That would be a treat.
That would be an experience. It's 10 episodes, so that'd be 5 hours of my life watching Doctor Who. That's not very good, but
I think our brains are going to be broken by the end of it.
If we're going to watch 10 episodes of Doctor Who, let's just watch the War Games.
Well, exactly. Yes, let's just watch the War Games. So much better.
Or if you want to do 10, we could just do Ark in Space and Genesis of the Daleks. Perfect double bill.
Yeah, also absolutely ideal. Yeah, I think there's a few better options than Creature from the Pit and the Time Monster. But it's nice to get a mention of the Creature from the Pit in. We haven't had that for a while, have we? So
always sneaking it in.
Yeah, that's the way. That's the way, exactly. And Bill, can you give us some more positive thoughts about season, if you have them, about season 9 and some of the things you like about it or stories you do like in season 9?
Yeah, I mean, No, it starts off completely fine and really good. And I think I don't know if I would say Day of the Daleks is like my favorite of the Pertwee Dalek stories, but then again, I am really into Death of the Daleks purely because of the design of the Daleks in that. So I don't know about that. But the Curse of Peladon, that's quite good. And then the Sea Devils we've talked about last year, of course, and both, sung its praises and everything. And I still completely stand by that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it is just the Mutants and the Time Monster, which I cannot believe if it honestly is going to be the next season to be in the collection range, which it probably is. I can't believe they're deciding to do them in HD. I mean, see, what was it, Baby Benton at the end of the Time Monster in HD?
Yeah.
That's another iconic moment. Absolutely.
Oh dear. But
yeah,
if that's the route they want to go down, that's completely fine. I think there's some good ideas on paper, at least, in both of them stories. I think it's more the execution and the fact that they're six-parters, which don't really need to be that long. I think you could have made them into 4-parters and that would have been completely fine.
Yeah.
So they really do feel like that classic, 6-parter slog of like it being so difficult to get through because it's just stretched out so much when it doesn't really need to be.
Yeah, exactly. But then there's such a stark contrast, I think, between the end of season 9 and the end of season 10, because you have ending with Mutants and Time Monster in season 9, and then you've got back to back to back Frontier in Space, Planet of the Daleks, The Green Death. I'm not saying Planet of the Daleks is amazing, but like as 3 stories, I think it's a pretty, a much stronger end to a season than season 9, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I think the whole of season 10 is just like
true. Yeah, I mean, while I'm ignoring the first 2 stories, yeah, it's true. 3 Doctors, Carnival of Monsters are also great. So yeah, you're right. It's an all-round great season.
Oh, and just a very quick mention of Time Monster. I've also just remembered Ingrid Pitt is also in it. Is also in War of the Deep.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Again, just thought I'd
got to get Warriors of the Deep in there as well. Yeah, they're the 2 required. Creature from the Pit, Warriors of the Deep. They're the 2 required stories to be mentioned on this podcast. They certainly are. But well, that's the story. So what are we hoping we are going to get new on this box set? I was trying to think about this because obviously one of the big things they did in the DVD range on this one was Day of the Daleks. They did a massive special edition where like they went and shot with some more Daleks to create the Dalek and Ogron scene at the end of the story look better by literally filming some new Daleks in it to make it look bigger. And there was loads of new CGI. And I think that they shockingly removed the No Complications Ogron, which I think is one of the great moments in acting history, to be honest. If you haven't seen it, just type Doctor Who No Complications on YouTube. It's just an Ogron who clearly, I don't know, he just hasn't gone to acting school, I don't know, but he's doing his own thing with the performance, it's fair to say. And they took it out for the special edition. I was like, no, that's an iconic moment, you've got to keep it in. But yeah, so we'll see with that. But Bill, what would you like to see on a new season 9 box set? Is there any location features or documentaries or people you'd like to see interviewed, or is there anything that specifically comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I think some stuff to do with the locations for, I think it's mostly the Sea Devils is the big one with the locations, isn't it, this season? Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a decent amount in Time. There's some in Time Monster and Day of the Daleks. I guess it's got quite a bit as well.
Yeah, so anything to do with them, that would be pretty good. I mean, I know with like Sea Devils, you're basically just going around like naval bases and disused stuff and everything, but I think that would still be quite interesting. And then as for like stuff to do with the In Conversations, I'm not too sure what they're going to have to do with that because I think they've done Katie Manning already, haven't they, for season 8, was it? Yeah. So I'm not sure. Maybe they might be able to get Richard Franklin or John Levine in to do some In Conversations, maybe.
John Levine, maybe, yeah. Especially as he has his big moment in the Time Monster.
So that might be quite good. And then I don't know beyond that really, because at least it's one of them seasons that's like I can't immediately think of anything. I'm sure they've thought of like more special features for it, but like it's kind of one of them seasons that I wasn't really. I'm glad they're doing it, don't get me wrong, and like to have more Third Doctor is always like a good thing, but I wasn't really expecting them to go with this season quite yet, because I thought they might have gone with something more of an anniversary season, you know, of it being the 60th this year. I thought they might have gone with like season 25, for example, and finished the McCoy era on Blu-ray, but or even done a Troughton season, like season 6 maybe, you know, so we've got at least a box set for every one of the main classic Doctors. So yeah, it's not one that I personally can like immediately think of loads of features on, but I'm sure there's a lot of potential there. I think because I've not seen most of these stories for such a long time, there's probably just not much that comes immediately to my head.
No, that's certainly understandable. Charlie, do you, obviously big Pertwee fan again, is there anything you'd like to see particularly covered in this box set?
So what you were saying about Bill, about like going around, you know, the naval base that they originally filmed it on would be an easy documentary. They could do it on the Sea Devils. I know they've already done a making of, but do another one. You know, it's just a good opportunity given how much location filming they did to, you know, I think it'd be somewhat unwise to, you know, pass up an opportunity to do something like that, you know, if they could. What you're saying about getting John Levine in, I think thing is, season 7, they don't really have anyone either. So they can maybe do John Levine for season 7 because he's appearing Ambassadors of Death and Inferno, and then maybe Richard Franklin for season 9. Because besides Katie Manning, who we've already had for season 8, there isn't really anyone besides those two for 7 and 9.
That is the challenge.
I mean,
whether there's any, I don't know if there's any sort of production crew who it'd be worth interviewing, but I don't know really.
Yeah, it's difficult when you get this far back, sadly. So like what you were saying, Bill, there's not really any obvious ones that come to mind, really. But yeah, the iconic location filming is always one that springs to mind for any season, and obviously we've got Sea Devils for this. We'll have Behind the Sofa, naturally. I'm sure we'll have Janet Fielding and Sarah Sutton as usual. Hopefully, fingers crossed. We've had them for I don't know.
One, I think, all but one or all but two, something like that.
They've got to be on it. We'll probably get Peter Davison, maybe Colin Baker, Katie Manning.
Yeah, I think Wendy Padbury I saw has been talking about the fact she'd recently seen some John Pertwee Doctor Who, which seemed to imply that she was on it as well. So I thought that would be quite fun, as it's obviously the Doctor after her one. Sort of that and how that's changed for her. I think that'd be good as well.
But yeah, beyond that, then I'm not really too sure, to be honest. It's not a season that automatically is overly, feels harsh saying it's not overly interesting, but it's not like the most iconic season that they could really do for the 60th. Like, I think the dream really is have season 1 release on the week of the 60th anniversary. They've got to really, but I don't know, maybe they'll surprise us and do season 20 instead.
Well, I strongly think season 20 will come out this year. I feel like, I mean, that's been rumored for about 4 years now, but I do think that they'll actually release it this year. Yeah,
I know. I can't remember. This was about a year ago, but I know Janet Fielding was saying something, and I remember I can't even remember what it was, but I remember I commented saying, "Does this mean season 20's next?" And then she just liked the reply and didn't say anything. I thought, oh yeah, season 20's got to be next. And then I think it was like 22 that was announced. So I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, maybe even season 20 finally.
Yeah, exactly. And well, looking at features, I just had a little look, and all of these stories have a solid making of documentary. So there's not any gaps to be filled here by sort of creating a new making of. So I guess, as you say, it's not that it's a bad season, because it's not, and there's some good stories in there. It just feels a very kind of not even forgotten season. It's just kind of one that's kind of there, and it's not that bad. It's not that great. It's kind of in the midst of, season 8 with the Master in every story. That's quite a big deal. Season 10 with all the brilliant stories, the end of saying goodbye to Joe Grant and the Green Death, the 3 Doctors and all of that. It sort of feels like we've got this season sandwich in the middle that you just don't quite know what to do with, almost know how you feel about it. I don't know, Ryan, do you feel like is there anything else you can think of that you'd like to see covered in this box set?
I can't really think of anything, to be honest. I mean, as you said, it's a good season, but it's not great. I still think, I mean, John Pertwee is my 3rd favourite Doctor, and looking at his season, I think season 8 with the Master and everything, that is still my personal favourite John Pertwee season. That is still top tier John Pertwee for me. And then very close second is season 7. Season 7 is very close, edging it out just underneath. And I think they're going to save that one for last.
I agree.
I think because, I mean, Spearhead from Space is fine, but
the rest
everything else really needs a lot of work put into it, because some of the footage, even on DVD, looks pretty rough. So I imagine they're going to need a lot of time to get that really polished up. I'm surprised. I was thinking it was going to be his last season, season 11, that was going to be the next Pertwee season, because that's the first with Sarah Jane Smith, who is regarded as the best iconic companion still to this day, and it's John Pertwee's leaving. I would have thought that was going to be the next one that was going to be done, but so I'm a bit surprised they've gone with season 9. But as I say, it's not definitely nowhere near as bad, but it's just an okay season. Like as I said, first 3 stories solid, the last 2 less said about the better.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I think it's fair to say that even if we're struggling to come up with ideas for new features and things for it, I'm sure the production team on this will not have struggled. And when they announce it, there'll be all these loads of new features and be like, wow, isn't this really exciting? Because they just always pull it out of the bag, I feel like, especially with a season with less stories as well. Obviously, we discussed season 2, and so in some places there wasn't that many new features, or it was, some of the discs felt a little bit lacking. I feel like in a season with only 5 stories, you're just going to naturally have quite a lot more additional content available and produced for this box set. So I think, whenever they choose to announce it, I mean, I'm hoping that by the time you listen to this, they haven't announced it. It'd just be typical if they announce it tomorrow after we've recorded this. But if they have, sorry, but it'll make this bit redundant slightly, but it's fine. We've still talked about the story, which is good. And well, the final thing we wanted to talk about, which is another rumor that was doing the rounds. It's all rumors these days, isn't it? They don't like to announce anything. It just leaks in online or in the press, really. And then Russell announces stuff. But of course, is the rumor of the return of animations. Now, this came out of nowhere because we were all pretty, 4 months ago, when Abominable Snowmen came out. And everything was great for that release, but it all felt pretty down about the future. I was at the BFI when Gary Russell said, there's no animations happening. Like, there's no plans for the future. That's it. It's done, basically, is what he said. And here we are, literally 4 months later, and it suddenly looks like, we're getting a whole new range of animations, starting with the Smugglers and the Underwater Menace for this year, for some reason. And some mysterious partners pumping a load of money into it to be able to get a load more animations done. One of the most intriguing things I thought was the fact that the article specifically said that the people funding this was not Disney, when it seemed the most logical thing in the world that Disney would pay for this to happen. We don't know any more information about it. I mean, I don't think there's been any other sort of rumors or anything in the last kind of 3 weeks since it was first, I think it was just after Christmas, wasn't it, that it was first revealed in the Mirror. It's worth noting that Nicola Metveen in the Mirror does have a very, very good track record for getting stuff right when it comes to Doctor Who news. She clearly has some contacts within the Doctor Who offices somewhere, because the majority of the stuff that she reports is correct. So, Bill, the return of animations, would you say you're excited for that? And the stories, the Smugglers and the Underwater Menace, do they fill you with excitement for the return of animations?
Animations coming back in general, yes, very, very excited about that. Because, like you say, we all thought it was going to be it after the Abominable Snowmen. So if if they do indeed bring them back this soon, because again, we're all thinking, even if they do come back, we'll be waiting at least 2 or 3 years. So if they bring them back only like a year later, that would be a really nice, pleasant surprise. As for the stories they've supposedly gone with, I mean, they are not the stories I would have chosen to animate, but at the same time, I feel like they are going to have to start, because they've done a lot of the big hitters at this point, really. And so they kind of have to, I think, go with some of the more kind of not as well regarded stories. And so them going with ones like the Smugglers and the Underwater Menace, it makes sense. And to be honest, I was kind of thinking that when they did, I know it was a really bad animation, but when they did that Web of Fear animation, I kind of suspected that they might eventually do something for the Underwater Menace, like in a similar style, perhaps, to that one. So I don't know, maybe that's what we're getting. I mean, it's not a style I'm particularly that much of a fan of, but if that is the best we are going to get for, however long it's going to be until we get more of them, then I'll gladly take it, really. And the Smugglers is fine. I mean, I do prefer it to the Underwater Menace, I will say, but that's not really saying much for me because the Underwater Menace, I get the appeal in the sense of like the memes of it with Professor Zaroff and everything, and that I think makes it at least memorable, even if it's kind of all for the wrong reasons in a way. Whereas the Smugglers is not particularly memorable. It's another, I've kind of noticed this with Doctor Who when they try to do stuff to do with pirates, they never really are very lucky with it at all. Like they tried to do it with the Smugglers and that's not very well regarded. And the same with the Curse of the Black Spot and definitely Legend of the Sea Devils. So yeah, I think I want to believe that it is true, that is happening, because I just want more animations at the end of the day. And I don't really mind if they've decided to go with these stories, because 2 animations or even 1 animation is better than no animations, ultimately. I know it also kind of, the article said something about colorizations.
Oh, yes, of course it did. You're right. Yeah, colorizing black and white Who, like the Unearthly Child and stuff, which I was not so sure about.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they want to do that for the 60th, I mean, for the 60th, it makes sense, especially like An Unearthly Child, that makes a lot of sense. So that's fair enough. But I do kind of feel like if they are doing that, then we should maybe like manage our expectations a bit, because I don't think they're going to have enough money to do like a 6-parter or anything like that. I feel like it is going to be maybe, if we're very lucky, 1 Hartnell story, probably an Unearthly Child, all 4 episodes of that, and then maybe a Troughton story like The Tomb of the Sidemen or something, and then that might be it. Although I think it could just be 1 episode, just the very first episode. It could be that. So if any of this comes true, then I'll be really glad and really happy about it, because regardless of the stories themselves, I think they make sense, because like I said, we're getting to the bottom of the barrel ultimately, and there's not many big hitters, big kind of well-regarded stories left that they've still got to animate. So if we have to get the Smugglers and the Underwater Menace, then so be it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if the animations were going to continue, we're always going to get down to the dregs at some point. The Space Pirates will probably be next. I mean, we obviously still got Dalek Master Plan, which is obviously the big one. That's the big one, exactly. It was worth noting, I was reading a forum where somebody claimed to have some information and said that the 2 stories were wrong, and it wasn't actually those stories. Could be complete nonsense, but somebody who has been proved to be right on some sort of physical media based stuff in the past on a forum did say that kind of implied the rumors were true, but these were not the stories that were going to be released next. So who knows? Could be a load of nonsense, but just what I'm saying. Ryan, animations, colorizations. What would you like to see? What would you like to see?
I mean, I'm not all that into the whole colorizations thing. Black and white stories they were made for black and white, need to stay in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always going to stand by that no matter what. In terms of animations, I wouldn't mind the Smugglers. I mean, I remember listening to it and found it fairly enjoyable. So, and I wouldn't mind them doing that next. I mean, I think they're definitely going to try and get through at least most, if not all, of the season 4 stories finished and done with. So probably be in time for like a collection set or something like that. So I'm not surprised that they would go for these stories next. I'm surprised that they haven't gone for the Highlanders as well, like two sort of historical-esque stories done in one. I thought, because I think Highlanders is definitely much better than Underwater Menace, certainly. I mean, I get the appeal that they want to try and get that one finished, because they did try to get it done in the past, but they couldn't do, and all this. And again, like Bill said, I see the appeal, but it's just, I don't know. It never fully clicked with me. I mean, my niece, she seemed to be entranced by some of it, but I think it's only because of the fish people. But I think that's about it.
Yes,
really. I mean, I know there's Professor Zarf has become a legendary meme in his own right, but that absolutely. I don't know if that really makes it a good thing. I mean, sure, like I'm pretty sure like Errata has become meme worthy in its own right, but that doesn't mean if it's necessarily a good thing.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
Those are the breaks.
well, exactly. I quite like the Underwater Menace. Maybe it's just because it's funny and I like laughing at it. It's been a while since I've watched it, like 3 or 4 years ago, so maybe that's the only reason I like it. But I always thought it was like, when I think about the Smugglers and the Underwater Menace, I think I'm going to have a lot more fun watching the Underwater Menace than I am the Smugglers. Even if it's not maybe, the better story or whatever. Like, I feel like I'll have more fun watching it. So that's kind of why I don't mind that they announced that one. Charlie, finally, colorizations. For me, I feel like, what's the point of spending money on those when we could be spending them on the animations? That's what I feel like. It's a pretty niche audience. It's not going to make people watch Classic Who on BBC Two if they start colorizing it and putting it on BBC Two. Like, it's not going to happen. So, I don't know. Would you prefer the money spent in the right places?
Honestly, yeah. It's just a bit of a waste of money, really, colorizing. I mean, I get why some people would think, oh, that's cool, have a colorizing. But at the end of the day, I would rather have that money either be pumped into animations, whether it be improving the Underwater Menace and Smugglers animations if they're happening to make them look less like the Web of Fear.
Yes.
Or perhaps starting off something with the Daleks Master Plan. Because honestly, as far as animations go, I would very happily, well, not happily, but I tolerate it if they didn't do any animations and we got Mission to the Unknown Daleks Master Plan in like 2027. I wouldn't care.
Yeah. It's worth it. It feels such a huge story in the history of Doctor Who that also would then just have such a new lease of life if released on animation, because people are daunted by it and don't go near it because 9 of 12 episodes are missing. You've got the weird Christmas special in the middle of it, and there's this prequel thing that doesn't exist at all. Like, it's so much of a thing that you could almost make pretty much a box set out of it just on that story alone. So as you say, I think the way forward would really be to take their time and animate that. And, it's sort of, I guess it's just the way these things worked out with contracts ending and things. But this year would have been the year to release it, really. I feel like for the 60th would have been the one. So I hope they don't wait till the 70th. That's for sure.
They could do the 60th anniversary of the story.
True.
So 2025, 6.
Yeah. That's because did it start airing in like November, I think, wasn't it? 1965.
I think it was like November to March or something crazy.
Yeah, I know, it's bonkers, isn't it? But that means there's nearly 3 years from now to kind of get it together. So maybe if they're just starting off, then possibly we could have it. But I don't know. It's a long-term thought, but maybe one day we will be able to enjoy all 12 episodes visually of the Daleks' master plan. Now that would be exciting. But that is just about all we have time for on this edition of KerVAM. Thank you so much for joining us for all our discussion about the new era of Doctor Who and many old eras of Doctor Who as well, like we always like to cover on this podcast. We'll be back somewhen soon. I'm not sure exactly when, but certainly if they announce season 9, then we'll be back for a podcast to discuss all the new things that we couldn't think of that were going to be on it. And we'll be like, of course they did that. Of course they did that. Because it will be great, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. And if any animations are announced as well, then we'll be covering those as well. But for now, it's thank you to Bill, to Charlie, to Ryan for joining me on this edition of KerVAM. We'll be back again very soon. But for now, it's goodbye.